The silent intruder. The night was quiet, only the sound of the wind touching the wooden walls of the human's cabin. Inside, the fire burned low, giving a faint glow across the room. The man, tired from a long day of work, rested in his chair, his eyes slowly closing. Outside, in the cold darkness, an alien woman stood hidden among the trees. Her body was thin, her clothes torn, and her stomach empty. She had not eaten for days, hunger had become her shadow, and loneliness was her only companion. She was a widow, left behind when the war took her husband. Her people had turned away from her, treating her like she was nothing. Now she had only one thought: survival. Her glowing eyes fixed on the small cabin. The smell of food drifted from the chimney, warm and rich. It pulled her forward like a rope around her heart. She stepped carefully, each foot silent against the ground. She knew it was dangerous. If the human saw her, he might attack, but hunger was stronger than fear. She reached the door and touched it gently. The wood was rough beneath her fingers. She hesitated, listening. Inside she heard nothing but the crackle of the fire. Slowly, she pushed the door. It creaked, and she froze. Her heart pounded like thunder. Still, no one moved inside. Step by step, she entered the cabin, her breath quick and shallow. Her eyes searched the room. On the table she saw bread, half a loaf left from the man's supper. The sight made her mouth water. She trembled, fighting against the shame of stealing. But her body was weak. She moved closer, her hands stretching out like a desperate child. The man stirred in his chair, his eyes opened slightly. He saw a shadow move across his table. At first, he thought it was a dream. But then he heard the faint sound of feet. He sat up quickly, and the chair creaked loudly. The alien woman gasped, her whole body stiffened. For a moment, time froze. The human's eyes locked with hers. She stood there, caught like an animal in the light of a fire. Her hands shaking, her lips pressed tight. She looked ready to run. The man rose from his chair slowly, his face hard, his eyes sharp. He had expected thieves before, but never this. Before him was not a warrior or a beast, but a woman. Tired, hungry, broken. Her bones showed beneath her skin, her cheeks hollow, her eyes, though alien, carried a pain he understood. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low and steady. The alien woman's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but no words came. She stepped back, ready to flee into the night. But her knees bent weakly. She almost fell, catching herself on the table. Her fingers touched the bread, and she pulled them back quickly, as if burned. The man looked at her for a long moment. His anger faded into confusion. Here was a stranger who had risked everything for a single meal. He could see it in her trembling form. She was not here to kill, not here to rob. She was here because she had nothing left. "Hungry," he said, his voice softer this time. Her glowing eyes lifted to him, uncertain. She swallowed hard and gave the smallest nod. A single tear slid down her cheek, shining in the firelight. The man breathed deeply. His instincts told him to chase her out. The village would never forgive him if they found her here. Aliens were not trusted. Many were hated. To give one shelter was to invite danger. But as he looked at her shaking hands, his decision wavered. The silence between them stretched, filled with tension. The woman shifted, ready to run out the door. Her mind screamed at her to leave before he changed his tone. Yet her body screamed louder for food. The man reached for the bread on the table. He broke it in half, his hand extended toward her. The alien woman's eyes widened. She did not move at first. She thought it was a trick. Why would a human offer food to her? Why would he not strike her down? But the warmth of the bread, the smell of it, drew her closer. Her hand shook as she reached out. Her fingers brushed his for a brief second. Her skin was colder than ice. His hand was rough but steady. She pulled the bread close to her chest as if it was a treasure. She bit into it, and the taste broke her soul. Tears ran down her face as she chewed. She ate too fast, choking slightly. The man poured water into a cup and placed it in front of her. Without thinking, she took it, drinking greedily. The man watched her silently. He did not understand why he was doing this. A moment ago she was a thief. Now she was like a lost child sitting at his table. Something in his heart shifted. The fire cracked, the shadows danced. The cabin that had always felt quiet now held two souls. One human, one alien, tied together by a single piece of bread. Outside, the wind howled, carrying the whispers of the dark forest. Inside, the silence grew heavy, filled not with fear, but with questions. Who was she? Why was she alone? And why, above all, did he not turn her away? The night deepened, and with it, the first thread of an unexpected bond was woven. The offer of food. The firelight flickered, sending soft waves of orange across the cabin. The alien woman sat at the table, clutching the piece of bread like it was her last link to life. Her hands trembled as she lifted it again, chewing slowly this time, afraid it might vanish if she finished too fast. The man stood nearby, arms crossed, watching her carefully. His mind was torn. He had caught a thief in his house, and yet he had not thrown her out. Instead, he had given her food, and now, as he watched her eyes close while she savored the taste, he realized this was no simple decision. This choice could change his life. The woman's breathing slowed as the bread settled in her empty stomach. For a moment, she forgot the fear of being caught. She forgot the cold waiting outside. Warmth spread through her chest, not only from the fire but from the human's unexpected mercy. More, the man finally asked, his voice firm but not unkind. She froze, her glowing eyes darted up to him. The word cut through her like a blade. Did he mean more questions, more trouble, or more food? She swallowed and looked down, ashamed. Her voice was hoarse when she whispered, "Please." The man sighed. He turned to the small pot near the fire. It still held some stew from his supper. Slowly, he took a bowl, filled it, and placed it in front of her. The rich smell filled the room. Her mouth watered, but her hands did not move. She stared at the bowl as if it were an illusion. "Eat," he said simply. The alien woman's fingers shook as she picked up the spoon. She dipped it into the stew, lifting it slowly to her lips. The first taste made her gasp softly. Warm broth slid down her throat, rich with flavor. Her body ached as if reminding her how long she had been starving. She ate again, faster now, tears streaking her face. The man sat across from her, silent. He studied her carefully. Every movement told a story. The way she clutched the spoon too tightly. The way she kept glancing at the door as though expecting to be thrown out. She was not used to kindness. "You should slow down," he finally said, "or you'll hurt yourself." Her spoon froze midway. She looked at him, unsure if his words were a threat or care. The tone in his voice told her it was the latter. She forced herself to take smaller sips, her breathing shaky. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why feed me?" The man did not answer at first. He stared into the fire, his jaw tight. "Because you're starving," he said at last. Silence stretched between them again. But this silence was different. It was not heavy with fear. It carried something else, something unspoken. The alien woman set the spoon down. Her glowing eyes met his. She whispered, "Humans. They don't help us. They chase us. They call us beasts." Her voice cracked. "But you..." She could not finish the sentence. The man shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He had heard the same words from his village. Aliens were not to be trusted. They were dangerous. Yet here in front of him sat a woman who was anything but dangerous. She was broken, alone, and desperate. Her gaze dropped again. She tightened her arms around her thin body. "I didn't want to steal," she whispered, "but my body..." She touched her stomach. "It betrayed me." The man exhaled. His anger melted further. He understood hunger. He had felt it in the past when winters were hard. He remembered the way it tore through the body and silenced pride. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low. Her shoulders tensed. She looked at the door, already ready to run. "But," he added, softer now, "I won't turn you out tonight." Her head jerked up, disbelief shining in her eyes. You will let me stay." "For tonight," he repeated firmly, "only tonight." She nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. She lowered her head again, clutching the bowl with both hands. Her tears fell into the stew. But she did not care. She ate until the bowl was empty, until warmth spread through her whole body. The man leaned back in his chair, his mind raced. He had broken the unspoken rule of his people. Never feed an alien, never shelter them. If anyone found out, the punishment could be harsh. But when he looked at her fragile frame, he could not bring himself to regret it. She sat quietly after finishing, her hands folded neatly on the table. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracked, but the sincerity in her tone filled the cabin. The man gave a short nod. He was not sure what to say. His heart felt heavy with questions. Who was she really? Where had she come from? And what had driven her to his door? But the night was long, and the answers could wait. For now, there was only silence, broken by the fire's crackle and the sound of her steady breathing. The alien woman glanced once more at him. Her eyes softened, her fear did not vanish, but in its place, a small spark of trust began to grow. For the first time in many nights, she did not feel like prey, she felt human warmth. The man looked away, but deep down, he knew something had changed. A choice had been made tonight. A line had been crossed, and whatever came next, neither of them would be the same. Shadows of her past. The fire had burned low, its glow spread across the small cabin, wrapping the room in a quiet warmth. The alien woman sat close to the flames, her arms hugged around her knees, her eyes reflected the firelight, glowing faintly in the dim room. She was full for the first time in many days, but the weight in her heart had not lifted. The man leaned back in his chair, arms folded, his gaze stayed on her. He did not trust easily, but something about her trembling form made him curious. She was not a thief in the way he had imagined. She was not a warrior, not a threat, she was simply broken. Finally, he spoke, "Who are you?" The alien woman stiffened, her body tensed as if the question itself was dangerous. She lowered her eyes. "No one," she whispered. The man frowned. "Everyone is someone," he said. His voice was steady but not harsh. "You had a life before hunger brought you here." Her hands clenched tighter. Silence filled the cabin. The only sound was the fire crackling. For a long time she did not speak. But then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, she said, "I was a wife." The man's eyebrows raised slightly. He did not interrupt. "My husband," her throat tightened. She closed her eyes, forcing the words out. "He went to fight in the war, he never came back." Her voice cracked, and for a moment she could not continue. The man watched her quietly. His heart softened. He had seen war take many men, but hearing it from her lips made it different. "When he died, my people turned away from me," she said, her voice steadier now but heavy with sorrow. "A widow is a burden, a hungry mouth with no strength to fight. They whispered that I brought misfortune, they left me with nothing." She looked at her thin hands, the veins visible beneath her skin. "So I wandered, I begged, I starved, no one cared." The man's chest tightened. He shifted forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "So you came here," he said. Her glowing eyes lifted to his, shimmering with tears. "I didn't want to. I was afraid. Humans hate us. I thought if you found me, you would kill me." Her lips trembled. "But my body, it wanted food more than life." The man leaned back slowly. He let her words sink into him. He had heard the villagers speak of aliens with disgust. They called them beasts, cursed them for every misfortune. But looking at her now, she seemed no different than any widow he had known. Grieving, lonely, desperate. "You risked your life for bread," he murmured. She nodded, her face burning with shame. "Yes," she whispered. "And I would do it again, because hunger kills slower, but crueler than any blade." The fire popped, sending sparks into the air. The sound made her flinch. Her shoulders trembled. The man noticed it. "You've seen worse than hunger," he said. Her lips parted, but she hesitated. A shadow passed over her eyes, darker than before. Slowly, she nodded. "I saw my home burn," she said. Her voice dropped low, like a secret she had buried. "When the soldiers came, they set fire to everything. I hid beneath the ruins. I heard my husband's last scream. I smelled the smoke as our roof collapsed. I wanted to die there, but I lived, I don't know why." Tears slid down her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. Her voice trembled. "Sometimes I think the fire still follows me. I feel it in my dreams. I hear it when I close my eyes." The man's hand tightened into a fist. He was no stranger to grief, but hearing it from her was different. There was no bitterness in her tone, only raw pain. She was not a fighter. She was not seeking revenge. She was only carrying the ashes of her past. Silence fell heavy again. The woman curled into herself, as if the weight of her memories pressed her down. The man stood slowly. He picked up a blanket from his bed and walked over. Without a word, he draped it across her shoulders. The alien woman stiffened. Her glowing eyes shot up at him. For a moment she looked as though she might pull away, but the warmth of the blanket sank into her bones, and she let it stay. Her lips parted, but no words came. The man returned to his chair, his eyes on the fire. He did not ask more. He had seen enough in her trembling form. She whispered after a long silence, "Why are you helping me?" He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Because no one helped you," he said simply. Her breath caught. Her chest ached with an emotion she had not felt in years, gratitude. The fire dimmed lower, the night grew colder outside, but in the cabin, a fragile warmth lingered. The alien woman leaned closer to the flames, clutching the blanket. For the first time in many nights, she felt safe enough to close her eyes. The man watched her silently. He knew this was dangerous. If anyone discovered her here, his life could change forever. But as he listened to her steady breathing, he realized something else. He could not send her away, not yet. The shadows of her past had followed her into his home. But perhaps, here, she had found the first light of something new. Trust in the dark. The night stretched on. The fire in the cabin had burned down to glowing embers. Outside, the forest whispered with the sound of wind through the trees. The alien woman sat on the floor, the blanket wrapped tightly around her thin shoulders. She did not sleep, though her eyes were heavy. She had learned long ago that sleep was dangerous. For her, danger always came when the world was quiet. The man sat in his chair, awake as well. His eyes shifted from the dying fire to the woman near it. He could see her glowing eyes reflecting in the dim light. She reminded him of a frightened animal, one that had been beaten too many times. She did not trust him fully, not yet, and he did not trust her either. But something had already changed between them, something fragile, something unspoken. She moved suddenly, standing and picking up the empty bowl from the table. Without a word, she carried it to the water barrel and rinsed it. Her movements were shaky but careful. She placed the bowl back neatly, then sat down again. The man raised an eyebrow. "You don't have to do that," he said. Her voice was low, soft, almost broken. "I must repay. I must not be a burden." He leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. "One washed bowl doesn't repay a meal." Her glowing eyes dropped to the floor. Her voice cracked. "Then tell me what will." The man studied her in silence. He wanted to say nothing, to remind her that she had no place here. But when he saw the way she trembled, not from cold, but from fear of being useless, he stayed quiet. Finally, he said, "Just rest. That's enough for tonight." Her lips parted as though she wanted to argue, but she stopped herself. She nodded once and hugged the blanket tighter. Her body curled small, like she was trying to disappear. The man's chest felt heavy. He was used to solitude. He had lived many nights in this cabin alone, and he had never minded it. But now, with her here, silence felt different. It was not empty, it was full of questions. Hours passed, the fire dimmed lower. Outside, the sound of a wolf's distant howl broke the stillness. The alien woman flinched, her body stiffened, her glowing eyes darted to the door. The man noticed. "They don't come near here," he said. "The wolves know better." She looked at him, her face pale. "Not wolves," she whispered. Her voice shook. "People." The man frowned. "What people?" Her arms tightened around herself. She leaned closer to the fire as if its light could protect her. "Hunters," she whispered. "They search the forests at night, looking for strays like me. If they catch me, they'll drag me to cages, or worse." The man's jaw tightened. He had heard of such things, though he had never seen it with his own eyes. The village feared aliens, and fear often turned to cruelty. He understood her trembling now. "They won't find you here," he said firmly. Her glowing eyes searched his face. Her lips trembled. "Why?" she whispered. "Why protect me?" The man did not answer right away. His gaze shifted to the fire. The truth was, he didn't fully know. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe it was something deeper. Something he was not ready to name. After a long pause, he said simply, "Because you've suffered enough." The alien woman's breath caught. No one had spoken to her like that in years. She lowered her gaze, and a single tear slid down her cheek. She brushed it away quickly, afraid to show weakness. Silence filled the cabin again. But this silence was softer than before. It carried a strange warmth. The man stood finally, adding wood to the fire. Flames rose again, chasing away the shadows. "Get some sleep," he said. "You'll be safe here." Her body stiffened at the word safe, as if the meaning was foreign to her. She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face, trying to see if he meant it. His eyes were steady, his tone was firm. Slowly, she lay down near the fire, her head resting on the folded blanket. Her body was still tense, but her eyes closed, the warmth of the flames touched her skin. For the first time in countless nights, she allowed herself to drift, not into full sleep, but into rest. The man returned to his chair. He watched her carefully, the way her breath slowed, the way her face softened in the glow of the fire. She looked younger, fragile, almost human in that moment. He leaned back, closing his eyes, but he did not let sleep take him. He knew she did not yet trust him enough to feel safe. So he would stay awake, he would keep watch. Hours passed, the firelight flickered across the cabin walls. The alien woman shifted in her sleep, whispering something in a language he did not understand. Her face twisted with pain, tears slipping from the corners of her eyes. She was dreaming, no, reliving. The man's fists clenched. He had no way to fight shadows, no way to silence the horrors that haunted her. But still, he whispered softly, though he knew she could not hear, "You're safe now." The words faded into the crackling fire, but in her troubled sleep, her body seemed to ease. Outside, the night grew colder, the forest whispered with secrets. The village far beyond the trees still carried its suspicion and fear. But here, in the small cabin, trust began to take root in the dark, fragile and uncertain, yet real. The man knew tomorrow would bring questions, perhaps danger, but for now, the bond between them had taken its first step. And though the night outside was filled with threats, inside the cabin, two souls shared a fragile peace. The village whispers. Morning light spilled through the cracks of the wooden cabin. The man stirred from his chair, his back stiff from staying awake most of the night. On the floor near the fire, the alien woman lay curled beneath the blanket. Her breathing was steady, for once peaceful. The man rubbed his tired eyes. He stood and quietly stepped outside. The forest greeted him with cool air and birdsong. But his peace was short-lived. In the damp earth outside his door, he saw them. Tracks, not his own. They were faint, but clear enough. Someone had walked near his cabin during the night. He frowned, his jaw tightening. The villagers, he thought. They often roamed the edges of the forest, suspicious of strangers and shadows. If they had seen the alien woman's prints leading to his home, questions would soon follow. Inside, the woman stirred awake, her glowing eyes opened slowly. She sat up, the blanket falling from her shoulders. Her gaze found the man, and for the first time, she asked, "Did you watch over me?" The man nodded once. "You were safe." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say more, but before she could, he added, "But we may have a problem." He gestured toward the tracks outside. Her eyes widened, fear rising instantly. "They will come," she whispered. Her body tensed as though ready to flee. The man's expression hardened. "If they come, you stay here," he said firmly. "Don't make a sound." She stared at him, confused. "You would face them alone?" "Yes," he answered simply. Her chest tightened at his words. Trust was not easy for her. But the way he spoke made her believe. For the first time in years, someone had placed himself between her and danger. Later that morning, he walked into the village for supplies. The people greeted him with their usual nods, but he noticed something different in their eyes. Whispers floated between them like smoke. He heard fragments, strange footprints, not human, out by the woods. His heart sank. They were already suspicious. At the market, a man approached him, broad-shouldered with a heavy voice. "You live near the forest, don't you?" the man asked. "Yes," he replied evenly. "Anyone come near your place lately?" The villager pressed, his eyes sharp. "We've seen tracks, not like ours, something unnatural." The man shook his head calmly. "Wolves," he said. "They pass through this time of year." The villager's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. He only muttered, "Best keep your doors locked. Stranger things than wolves wander these woods." Then he walked away, leaving tension hanging in the air. The man carried supplies back to his cabin. Every step weighed heavy. The villagers were watching. The alien woman could not be seen. If she was discovered, their mercy would be no greater than the fire that had once burned her home. When he returned, she was sitting near the window, her eyes on the trees. She turned quickly when he entered. "They know," she said, her voice shaking. He placed the supplies down. "They suspect," he corrected, "that's all." Her hands tightened around the blanket. "You should not risk yourself for me. she whispered. If they find me here, they will hate you too. The man looked at her, his eyes steady. Let them hate me, he said. I won't throw you out. Her breath caught, her chest ached. She had expected rejection, betrayal, even violence. But not this. The words made her feel both fear and warmth. The day passed in uneasy silence. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every step of a villager near the forest made her heart pound. She wanted to leave, to run deep into the woods, but something held her back, his promise. That night, as the fire burned once more, she finally spoke, her voice soft. Why are you doing this? The man sat across from her, staring into the flames. Because no one else will, he said. Because the world has already taken too much from you. She looked at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. Slowly, she whispered, if they hurt you because of me, I will never forgive myself. He met her gaze, his expression firm. If they hurt me, it will not be because of you, it will be because of their own fear. The cabin grew quiet again, but the silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the weight of decisions, of risks, of unspoken trust. Outside, the wind carried whispers through the village, suspicion growing like a storm. Inside, the small cabin carried something else. A fragile bond between two souls who had every reason to mistrust each other, yet chose not to. For the alien woman, fear still lingered, but beneath it was something new, fragile yet strong, hope. And for the man, the danger of the village pressed closer. But he knew one truth, he could not, and would not, send her away. The breaking point. The days passed, but the tension in the air grew heavier. The man's cabin, once a place of quiet routine, now carried the weight of danger. Every knock of wood, every howl in the night, every distant shout from the village made the alien woman flinch. Her glowing eyes often searched the shadows as though hunters waited in every corner. The man tried to keep life steady. He worked in the forest as usual, gathering firewood and hunting small game. But now he always returned quickly, fearful of leaving her alone too long. When he entered the cabin each evening, her face would light with silent relief. That simple look of trust pierced deeper into his heart each day. But food was running low, the winter was creeping in, and the forest was less generous. He noticed the way she ate less, pushing part of her share aside, pretending she was full. One night, as the fire burned low, she finally spoke the words she had been holding back. I should leave, she whispered, her voice cracked, but her eyes were steady. You risk too much keeping me here. You will starve if I stay. The man's jaw tightened. He set down the knife he had been sharpening and looked at her directly. No, he said firmly. Her hands trembled, clutching the blanket. If I go, you will be safe. If I stay, they will come for you. The villagers already suspect. You cannot carry my burden. He leaned forward, his voice calm but strong. You are not a burden. She shook her head violently, tears filling her eyes. I am hunted, hated, worthless to them. I cannot fight. I cannot give you anything, only danger. Her voice broke. Why are you doing this for me? The man's chest felt heavy. He had no simple answer. He stared into the fire for a long moment before saying, because someone must. Her breath caught, her tears fell silently, dripping onto her hands. For so long, no one had spoken words like that to her. She had begged, pleaded, starved, and been ignored. And now, here was a man choosing to stand beside her. But their fragile peace did not last. That same night, heavy boots crunched in the snow outside. Voices murmured low but sharp. The alien woman's body went rigid. Her glowing eyes filled with panic. She turned toward the man, her lips trembling. They are here, she whispered. The man stood quickly, grabbing the axe resting by the door. He did not raise it in anger, but in readiness. He glanced back at her. Hide, he ordered. She shook her head, fear making her knees weak. They will kill you. Hide, he repeated firmly, his eyes steady. She saw no fear in them, only determination. Slowly, she crawled into the shadows behind the storage chest, curling herself into the smallest space she could. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure the men outside could hear it. A hard knock shook the door. Open up, a voice barked. The man pulled the door wide, his face calm, though his chest burned with tension. Outside stood 3 villagers, torches in hand, suspicion burning in their eyes. Strange tracks. One of them said, leading toward your cabin. The man shrugged. Wolves, he said simply. Another villager stepped forward. Those are no wolf tracks, you hiding something in there. His eyes tried to peer past the man into the warm glow of the cabin. The man blocked the doorway with his body. Only fire and wood, he said, nothing else. The tallest of them narrowed his eyes. We'll see about that. Step aside, we'll search. The man's hand tightened on the axe. His voice lowered, calm but firm. No one enters my home without my say. The three men exchanged looks. Suspicion thickened in the cold air. The man stood like stone, his eyes unyielding. Finally, one villager spat on the ground. You're a fool, he growled. If you protect them, you'll regret it. With that, they turned, their torches vanishing into the night. The man shut the door slowly, locking it. His chest rose and fell heavily. He turned back to the cabin, his eyes finding the corner where she hid. She crawled out from the shadows, tears streaking her face. Her body trembled. They will kill you, she whispered. He set down the axe and shook his head. Not tonight. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the floor. Her hands covered her face. I cannot do this. I cannot bring you death. The man knelt before her, his hands steady as he lowered them onto hers. Gently, he pulled her hands away from her tear-stained face. His eyes met hers, strong and unbroken. Listen to me, he said firmly. I will not send you out there to die, not while I still draw breath. Her chest heaved, her glowing eyes wide and shimmering with disbelief. No one had ever spoken for her like that. No one had ever chosen her life over their safety. For a long moment, silence hung heavy between them. Then, slowly, she leaned forward, her forehead resting against his chest. Her body shook with silent sobs. The man closed his eyes, his hand resting gently on her back. He knew the danger was growing. The village would not let this rest. But he also knew something else. He would face it. Whatever it was, he had made his choice. The fire burned low, shadows stretched long across the cabin walls. Outside, whispers spread through the village like poison. But inside, in that small wooden cabin, a promise stronger than fear had been made. A meal shared. The village did not sleep. Rumors spread faster than fire through dry grass. Some swore they had seen strange prints in the snow. Others claimed shadows moved near the man's cabin at night. By morning, fear had turned into anger, and anger into determination. They would not tolerate what they did not understand. Inside the cabin, the alien woman sat quietly near the fire, her body still trembling from the night before. She clutched the blanket tightly, her glowing eyes shifted often to the door, every creak of wood outside making her heart leap. The man moved with calm purpose. Though his heart was heavy, he placed bread on the table, then added 2 bowls of stew. His hands were steady, but his thoughts were storming. He knew the village would come. He knew hiding her was no longer possible. The breaking point had arrived. Eat, he said softly, placing a bowl in front of her. She shook her head. I cannot. Not while danger waits outside. I should leave. He sat down across from her, his eyes steady. No, if you go, they will hunt you down. If you stay, at least I can stand with you. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her chest ached with confusion. Why would a human risk everything for her? Yet the warmth in his voice left no room for doubt. Before she could speak again, heavy knocks thundered against the door. Voices shouted outside, open up. The alien woman froze, fear gripping her entire body. The man rose calmly. He walked to the door and pulled it open. Half the village stood outside, torches burning in the cold morning light. Their faces were sharp with suspicion and anger. At their front stood the broad-shouldered man from the market. His voice boomed. We know something is in your home, step aside. The man did not move, his frame filled the doorway. You have no right to search my house, he said firmly. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The villager snarled. If you shelter one of them, you endanger us all. Aliens bring disease, war, and death. If you care for your people, prove it. Let us see inside. The man's jaw tightened. His hand gripped the edge of the door. Behind him, he could feel her trembling presence. He knew hiding her was no longer possible. Slowly, he stepped aside, not to surrender, but to reveal. He walked back to the table and placed his hand on the second bowl of stew. With steady movements, he sat down, his voice calm but unyielding. If you believe I hide a monster, then watch closely. The alien woman sat frozen, her glowing eyes wide with terror as the villagers leaned forward. She wanted to disappear, to run into the woods, but the man's steady presence anchored her. He set one bowl in front of her. Eat, he told her gently. His voice carried through the cabin, strong enough for all to hear. Her hands trembled, her eyes darted between him and the angry faces outside. They will kill you, she whispered. They will see, he replied firmly, that you are no beast. For a long moment, silence choked the air. The villagers stared, their torches crackling. The woman lifted the spoon with shaking fingers. She brought it to her lips. Her eyes closed as she swallowed, her body trembling not from hunger this time, but from the weight of so many eyes. The man ate from his own bowl, calm and deliberate. The sight was simple. Two beings sharing a meal. But the meaning was louder than any torch or shout. Whispers broke among the villagers. Some sneered, others faltered. One woman muttered, "She looks like nothing but a widow, thin and broken." Another spat, "It is a trick, they are dangerous." The broad-shouldered villager's face twisted with anger. "You shame us all," he barked at the man. "You betray your own kind." The man met his eyes steadily. "I betray nothing. What I see is hunger. What I see is loss. What I see is a life that deserves to live. If that is betrayal, then let it be." The alien woman's eyes filled with tears. She could not remember the last time someone had spoken for her with such fire. She set the spoon down and whispered, barely audible, "Thank you." The villagers shifted uneasily. Some lowered their torches, some turned their eyes away. They had expected a beast, a threat, a creature of darkness. Instead, they saw a frightened woman sharing bread at a man's table. The leader growled, but his voice had lost its strength. "This is madness," he spat. "But remember this, when they bring ruin, it will be on your head." With that, he turned, and slowly the crowd thinned, their footsteps fading back toward the village. The man closed the door, locking it firmly. He turned back to the woman, who was still shaking. Her hands covered her face. Tears leaked between her fingers. "They will come again," she whispered. "They will never stop." The man placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. "Then let them come," he said. "We will face them, together." She lowered her hands, her glowing eyes meeting his. In their depths was something fragile but alive. Hope. For the first time since the fire had taken her home, she felt she was not alone. She whispered the words she thought she would never say again. "You make me feel alive." The man gave a faint, tired smile. He sat back down at the table, pushing the bread closer to her. "Then eat," he said, "because tomorrow, we fight hunger and fear the same way, together." The fire burned brighter, its light pushed back the shadows. Outside, the forest and the village still held danger. But inside, in that small cabin, two souls, once strangers, now bound, shared a meal, and with it, a bond no fear could break.